Ah, there it is.
We are here. Hello, everybody. It's me, GhostCritic, and I'm back with another Pure Comic podcast, boldly going where podcasts have all been before. Pure Comics podcast is an hour-long chat, one-on-one, with one of my fellow comic book YouTubers. And this week, I'm very pleased to have a guy who has in no small way influenced my comic book collecting over the years. It's the one and only. It's Tim. It's Howlermouse. Thank you for joining me, Tim.
Hey, what's up, guys? Nice, great to be here. Great to see everyone. And Ghost Critic's going to make me blush about 5 times during this.
Now, I mean, I've got to say, I don't know whether it's all the caffeine I've been drinking today or it's because I've got you on a podcast, but I am a little nervous. And I've done a lot of preparation for this podcast because you have to come prepared when you get Howlermouse on here. Because he knows his stuff. I'm not gonna say any other way. So
vicious lies, dirty rumors. That's all I'm telling you.
The modesty. Anyway, in my preparation, I decided to go and look back at a couple of your old videos.
Given
that the whole podcast is about the theme of collecting comics, so I was kind of looking through, and there was one particular one that I want to kick off with, and we're going to go right to kind of the very beginning of collecting comics. You were recounting stories of your comic book life, and you kind of put up comic books and said, this is 1980, whatever, and I was doing this. This was 1990, I was doing this. I know this is a big call, and maybe it'll be perfectly easy for you, but can you remember that first comic?
Oh, absolutely. And what is so funny about that first comic, I've got it in front of me. When you told me what the theme was about collecting, I grabbed some of them. And it's never a simple answer with me. I'll try to, I know we're in an hour. Anyway, what it is that what I want to kind of put out there is that, like, people who grew up with a TV in their house and music and a radio, those little things around the house, I was cursed with having a stepdad who was about 18 when he married my mother, and he was still in college at the time, and an uncle who was about a year or two older than him, and this stuff was in the house everywhere. I don't ever remember it not being there. So what I remember is I remember walking into the room, seeing the stacks of comics and old grocery paper bags, magazines, Conan, all this stuff, everything in there, Silver Surfer. And actually, one of the first comic books I remember reading, I read 3 comic books at the same time, and I pulled out the one that is my favorite out of them. It was the first Superman Family with a Kurt Swan, Neil Adams cover, something like, I don't know, Superman Family 176, I don't know, I got it over here. But this is the actual book. It was a Thor with the Guardians of the Galaxy in it from 1977. Okay? It's a Thor annual, and he gets thrown into the future, and they kind of do a retelling of Avengers #4 where the Avengers found Captain America frozen. Events happened where Thor's floating through space, frozen, and the Guardians bring him in and thaw him out the same way. So here's the original, and here's my upgrade.
Ooh. See those colors pop.
Yeah, and then the other one was this is actually from 1976. This is Iron Man Annual #3, and it was Steve Gerber. I remember the Steve Gerber stories, but I remember the Jack Kirby art, put it that way, but I didn't know it was Steve Gerber, man. But it was Iron Man with a Man-Thing in there.
I remember you showing that one, yep.
Yep, and, here's the upgrade I got so I can have it. So these are the actual books that I read, So yeah, this blew me away, man. It had kids in the swamp riding their bikes. I mean, it was just the slice of life, and then all of a sudden, man, you just have like a little girl drowning, and she's possessed by the Molecule Man, and Steve Gerber is playing with gender in this, and it's real subtle. And I was like reading this, picking up on it, going, "Whoa, this is kind of weird," I'm like, but it was.
Sorry, go on.
Oh no, it was like that good Land of the Lost weird. You know what I mean? Like, this has never happened, but it's just fantastic. I love it. So
no, it's okay. And did you feel kind of at that point that it's kind of a big ask, that comics were going to be a big part of your life, to where we are now?
I can look back on it and I'm hooked, and it's still, as far as comics being big, I kind of, when I started figuring out that this stuff, seeing how my mom reacted to this stuff, and how people would, I would like jump up as a little kid and try to tell them this great story I read, and they would just kind of look at me and just, oh, that's nice. I kind of knew that they were missing out. I never took it like this made it an outcast. I knew it wasn't exactly popular, but I was sort of like, I had no shame, but I'm like, you guys are missing out. Your little closed minds are just a world of imagination. You know, go listen to your disco. Get your bad mustaches. Get your little gold medallion and put your headband on, you burnout hippies. I got the good stuff right here. Little did I know it was the burnout hippies writing this stuff. Who knows? Who knew?
I mean, if you're a new collector now, you kind of have this huge kind of back catalogue to go and find what's come before, what you're collecting now. I suppose back there, were we talking the 70s, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I was like, I'll go ahead and tell you, I was born in 1973, okay? And my mother married my stepdad when I was 3 years old. So a year later, when you get up at Saturday mornings and it's your own little world, I would be grabbing those and the cartoons and the Fruity Pebbles, that kind of thing. And like I said, that's what I mean. It's just this comic book thing to me. It's not that I knew it was part of my life. It was just so around so much, like a TV and everything like that. It was just, it actually made me go outside and try to have adventures with my friends and stuff. We'd go out in the woods and stuff, and this stuff was kind of inspiring that way. I never thought this stuff was real. I wasn't one of those kids that would put a towel on and you have to be afraid if he's going to jump off a roof and fly, Yeah.
So I mean, you've said kind of like that, the comics always been around. When you first picked up those first few that you just showed. So you kind of had this, I guess, back catalogue of comics to go and dive into. But like, was there like that moment, because obviously you were still quite young, but were you able to go like out flea markets, car sales and all that, and look for older ones?
Yeah,
was that something you actively did?
Well, being my age and stuff, I started. I never thought about this question, but you maybe remember something, right? There was a place called a Raven Flea Market, and the flea markets were huge and stuff. Of course, I'm like 5 or 6, and I started knowing that I could start looking for comic books then, because the stepdad would go down there, and he was a knife collector. Okay. And he would look for old knives and things like that, and his knife collecting was more Conan inspired. He wanted he didn't get big hunting knives. He would get like the Conan swivel knives, but I don't know. So while he was doing that, but I remember walking past this guy, and they would put them in just big boxes, and they would just have these comic books around, right? And me being a little kid, and you can't be left alone and all this stuff. While other kids were looking for toys, I started out that way. But all of a sudden I looked over and I saw this great big huge box of comics, and they were like all-star comics and stuff. Now this is like 1978, 79, and as I got older and would try to remember what those comic books I saw that were just dumped in this thing, no bags, no boards, no nothing like that. They were all-star comics from the 40s.
That's it. I mean, today, like we go out, we hunt for back issues, and we get very kind of excited if we see something from the Bronze Age. But to be there in the 70s, looking back, and you're seeing comics from the 40s.
Yeah, and in that summer, I was I don't know how to say it, I was a very kind of quiet child around adults. I don't know. But the thing is, I remember that summer going about, every other weekend, and nobody was buying those comics. And that's one of the things that kind of haunted me. And that's probably what led me to be looking at the flea markets and stuff. I mean, I feel very lucky I wouldn't say I had the awareness. It's just it kind of caught my eye, and it was kind of stuck, I would love to say that I made the decision, but that might be where the little bit of the obsession was starting to start, That could have been the seed. But yeah, and people would just want to give away comics and stuff. I'd be at somebody's house, and I don't know how the adults talk and stuff, but I'd get handed a little stack of comics and stuff like that they had in the house that they wanted out. They were like, you want these? Yeah, and I'd get a few Batman that way and stuff like that when I was a kid, and I was always appreciative Bugle Boys, the Beagle Boys from Walt Disney, Pink Panther comics, Fat Albert. I'd had that thrown at me here and there. All good stuff, But that's where I like the variety of comics. I think a great collection has variety, and and going from a cartoon book to Justice League and stuff like that, superheroes. I just think it enriches the experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we'll go on in a little bit about your comic book collecting in general, and like you say, the variety. I mean, I'm just trying to think like the way I got into comics, because it's vastly different to obviously you guys over there in America, because they are an American product really, and finding them over in Britain especially in the 70s as well, because I was born in 71. Even more difficult to find, but I know that they were there. I mean, I've said in previous videos that there were like a pile of Batman and Superman comics. So I mean, there was only me, mum and dad, so one of those two had to have had some sort of interest in comics, and they weren't bought for me.
Right.
I just had them there and I read them, and I don't know if I'm sure I might have said this story before, but I mean, I was born in Liverpool, and then when I was 10 years old, they moved up to the Lake District for one of my dad's jobs. And the way the houses were set up back then, I don't know if they kind of have it in America, or you'll know what I mean, but they were kind of like back-to-back housing, but in between the houses, there was either like a little lane or what we call a privet, which is like a big hedge kind of thing that splits the two up. And I used to hide in this little privet that you could like make a little den in there, and I used to take these Batman and Superman comics out with me. Now it pains me still to this day to talk about this and say it, because I mean, I don't know what they were. I can't remember what they were, or if they could be any potential worth, whatever. But one day, called in, tea, dinner, whatever, and I left the comics out there.
Oh, no.
All about them. And then, of course, it's the Lake District. The Lake District is very well known for the rain and being really crappy weather. And it rained that night, and obviously they got soaked to bits. There was no way of saving them. And oops. But it's kind of like that was my earliest remember of American comics, because the way I got into it was kind of like the British, maybe late 80s, early 90s stuff. We had these kind of fortnightly, weekly comics. I'd say they were a bit like the Vertigo comics of that time over in Britain, and you had people like the big names like Sean Phillips, the artist doing some of his first work on these kind of magazine anthology 2000 AD type books. Obviously, you had Alan Moore doing a lot of the short stories he did in those. And that kind of drew me in to the more adult side of comic book collecting. And then I've definitely spoken about this before. There used to be a fish market. There used to be a big kind of balcony, and right at the back in a corner, this guy had these long boxes. And I used to pick out, I don't know why I was drawn to these, but it was the horror books, the DC and the Marvel horror books of the 70s. And I just remember the guy selling them looked up to my dad and was like, is it okay for him to have these? I mean, you look at them and I know, okay, from an older age, you think, what is this guy on? But maybe, like in the 80s, they might have had more emphasis. I don't know, a bit more scary than you would have thought. But
yeah, I think that's fantastic, because I've always wondered what some of the appeal is for us. And right there, it's kind of, you got something a little forbidden, a little scary. You kind of know you're not supposed to be seeing this, and you're kind of pushing the limits with your parents. Like, can I? A little bit of a rebellion going on there. Comic books were still kind of outlaw. I don't know. I think about these things.
No, you've definitely got something there. So talking about your comic book collection, and even though, I mean, we've seen the hauls you have, and they are incredibly eclectic, I think as a collector at some point, Generally, you decide, I'm going to collect this title or I'm going to collect this run. With yourself, I don't know if I've ever noticed this. It's not like, for me, it's Fantastic Four. I would love to own the whole run. Whether that will ever happen, it's highly unlikely, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do my damnedest to try that. Have you got one of those? You like, is it Avengers? Is it Spider-Man? Is it Batman? Or are you just so eclectic?
Oh, all right. Again, one of those questions. What happened was, I actually got this. What happened was I knew as I was collecting, I got older, around 10 years old. I actually knew I met two people. One had every issue of the X-Men. These are, of course, older people. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy who had collected almost every issue of the Fantastic Four. So at my age, I'm not thinking collectors. I'm not thinking value-wise and things. I'm like, I want a book that I can follow at my age now and be like these guys and be in my 20s or 30s and stuff and still say, hey, I got it. And feel free to laugh, but you know what book came out right when I decided this? Batman and the Outsiders. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is going to be my book to follow for the rest of my life. And Batman and the Outsiders lasted 30-some issues. Went to a Baxter series. I have no idea how long it went after that. So I was like, no. I tried, And so, I would just get great, I don't know, just books that caught my eye, great story arcs and stuff. Events were starting to happen as, we were going on. I think the next big event besides Crisis was John Byrne on Superman. So I wanted all the stuff that he did, right off the shelves because I was enjoying them. But the funny thing happened when Neil Gaiman started Sandman. You actually started seeing a few books over the years come out where it was a complete story. It just happened to be 75 issues, 80 mm-hmm. issues. So Starman would be that book. Sandman would be that book. I'm playing around with Cerebus, and I'm playing around with Hellblazer. I'm finding Hellblazer to be very hit or miss now that I've accumulated a lot of them. And I'm doing it just because there's just not that many good books on the market now, and I've always kind of wanted to do this anyway. Yeah. So I think I stayed in the bounds of your question. I'm so sorry I'm complicated.
No, that's fine. Because this is something that I do notice when I watch your videos and I see your haul videos, that it's not just those kind of, they're a done in one, like the Sandman, it only went for 75 issues. It's not a complete ongoing, it's not continuing. But you kind of like seek out, like you say, you wanted the whole John Byrne run of Superman. I've seen you wanting to collect all the Marvel that have the headboarders around. The what anniversary was it?
25th anniversary.
25th, that was it. Yeah. And that's kind of the way I feel. You collect more than it's an ongoing run. I have to have every issue from number one to the present day. Am I kind of right there?
Yeah. What's going on is that and I don't want to I try to stay positive about collecting, but the Marvel and DC books are just not doing it for me. I mean, they're really not. And I could go on a big rant. I've fought going on a big rant. And what's going on is that, time has flown by when it comes to my collecting. I mean, I'm getting older, Mark. I'm in my early 40s.
Not as old as me.
Just because you're carrying it better doesn't mean I am going to handle it as well. Okay? And what's going on is I'm like, oh, man, I meant to get these. Oh, man, I meant to get these. I'm looking back at some of the stuff when I play around in here that I'm like, I'm not living forever, man. I've put stuff off that I was going to collect and put this off. I started collecting. I'm like, this is the good time because 99% of the books out there are just not doing it for me,
And,
I just did a whole, yeah. Oh,
so
go ahead.
You're going to look towards, not towards, but you're going to look behind and see what's come before that and pick out, what you're enjoying, what you're comfortable with, I guess, at the gold days of your comic book experience, the years that have gone by.
Yeah. And there is something fulfilling from the collector standpoint of like, I said I was going to do this, and I've ran across this, and I've got the collection complete, and it's satisfying. It really is. I have a short box with every Blackest Night issue minus some variant covers. But that's all right. And it's cool to have all that. You know, I'm starting to get the Secret Wars 2 stuff just to have them complete, the DC 1 million, all these things that I experienced when they were coming out, but you didn't have the money back then because they were everywhere. They just flooded them. And now you can kind of slow down, and that's the collector in me. I'm like, cool. You know, this is probably the only time where I kind of don't care if the story's good or not. You know, it's going to be the set. You know, I have the set. I don't have to go buy a $150 omnibus to have all this. I have it. You know.
And I think I'm going to kind of try and use a question that will kind of slip in a question that Damien wanted me to have on the podcast on here, and it kind of, we're seeing the way people kind of change the way they collect comic books. It's like yourself, they don't necessarily want to have the whole runs of stuff. Now it's about kind of like key issues. It's getting them CGC'd. It's slabbing them and the like. What are your thoughts on that now?
Well, it's how a person wants to collect, and what ends up happening is I end up wanting to give advice from being there. I tried the key issue and the value things in the 90s. And it's you know, I go on record, it was a miserable time to be collecting. I mean, I just was not enjoying it, and it was really bizarre how much it actually did make me miserable. This hobby kind of bled into my life because I don't know, I've never put a finger on that. So the thing is, if that's how you want to collect that, what makes you happy, that's good. That's going to be a solid investment, and you're going to get some money back on eBay. That's great and stuff. But the trappings that I see that gets on my nerves when I'm talking to somebody like that is all of a sudden they get so into it, everything's the key issue. This is their second appearance on a cover. This is the third time they were eating oatmeal on page 5. I mean, that's the only thing about key collecting I don't like. Not everything is going to be a key. And if somebody knows that's how you want to collect, I can pick 3 books right now and I can convince you why this is a key. You know, this is page 1 of New Mutants 92, and Rob Liefeld drew somebody with 2 left feet. See how they're running? You know, that's a mutation.
How can you tell he doesn't draw feet?
Yeah, and when he does, 2 left feet. You know, so I can convince you that's a key. This is the only appearance of what is her name? I'm going blank, man. Not Boom Boom, but Jubilee. I have a book where Jubilee has 2 left feet by Rob Liefeld, and I could probably sell that as a key. I'm telling you. Nobody knows about her 2 left foot mutation, you know.
It was her second mutation, wasn't it?
Yeah. Years before Grant Morrison did it, Rob Liefeld did it. Here you go. You know, I'm like, $20. It's a deal. You know, it's a steal. You know.
Talking about one of your other videos I did watch, and it's kind of like, what was the title? I think it was something like "So You Want to Be a Comic Book Collector," and it was all about the stigma of apparently being a comic book collector.
Yeah.
And and you went into quite you had a wonderful analogy on that video about it, and basically, you know, don't give 2 fucks kind of deal. But I just wonder now, I mean, not that do you still feel a stigma towards it, but are there people in your life that just kind of don't get it? You know, they could be your friends, but they're like, what is this 40-year-old man collecting kids' books, I guess?
Yeah, and I'm a bit unusual because I've actually had this talk before, right? And what's happened is the people who wondered that started watching the movies, and now all of a sudden, when a movie comes out, a CW television show comes up, guess whose phone is just blowing up with people wanting to know things? What's this about? What's going on? But the other part is that I think I kind of escape a lot of that now because comic books has always been a hobby. This is a thing on the side. I do things outside of the house when I have money and stuff. You know, I shoot pool, I hang out, I have a job. I went back to school and got my bachelor's and stuff. You just got to have a balance in life, and this in comics for me has been this hobby on the side. It's my peaceful place. You know, this is the fun thing to talk about. You know what I mean? It's not that I put a separation on them. It's just I've always just had that balance with it. You know, but yeah, I'm one of those people, sometimes you don't want to be that guy that's a little bit of a wet blanket for people having fun with it. But there's a difference between jumping into comics because you saw a movie and it's a trend, and there's a difference between being a comic book collector. I mean, I'll stand by that. I mean, there shouldn't be a war going on. People are playing, but everybody finds comics somehow, and either you're going to have a passion for it or you're not. And if you're a collector, once you experience that stigma, or the first time somebody does things like what you're asking, you're either going to stick with it or you're not. I'll stand by. So I mean, I run across a few people, but the movies and stuff, people aren't as they haven't been looked at as hard as I have in the past, if that makes any sense. It's a little bit more. Okay, the movies and TV shows have changed things a little bit in my experience, but the stigma is still there.
And of course, the stigma is the kind of geeky thing, nerdy culture thing is still, I don't think, thoroughly mainstream as it's perceived, despite the fact that we've got these huge big movies. But I mean, for me, it's weird because I've never, until I got onto YouTube, I spoke to no one about comics. I don't think anyone knew I even bought them, let alone read them. And it wasn't so long ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I'd started on a new team at work, and they were all very young. It was some new business coming into our place. We were training them all up, and somehow, I don't know, these kids are just, I mean, they're always on social media. Somehow they found me on Twitter, and obviously through Twitter, they'd seen that I had a comic book channel, and they were actually I was surprised that they were quite interested in it. There wasn't like, oh, he likes comic books. Oh, let's point and make fun of him. And to the point where one day I brought in just a small kind of pile of comics, all over the place. Many years. I showed them Commanding Number One, and it was just like, this is nothing. I know this was nothing to him. It wasn't seen as, oh, this is some sort of nerdy weirdo outsider thing. And one of them wanted to take them out of the bag, and I was like, no. You can keep your sticky fingers off them.
I'm having anxiety for you right now. Do I need to come over? I mean, I'm on my way, sir. Freaking Buggles.
What else did I want to ask you?
Well, I do want to say something a little bit more to that question.
No, that's fine.
But the high school years versus now in the midlife crisis years that I've noticed that I think is funny. As I think I said in the video, I actually had 2 girls in high school break up with me because I had a closet and my collection was probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 boxes in that closet and some on a bookshelf, And I went to take a shower where they hung out in my room, and 3 things happened. One girl found the comic books in the closet and told me that this isn't going to work out. The second one was I came out of the bathroom, my closet door was open, and she was just gone. And the third girl found my comic books, didn't think anything of it, got under my bed, found all my old love letters, and had started a fire in the middle of my bedroom in my wastebasket burning.
Oh, my God.
So now flash forward years later to like now, like my lady friend that's here now and stuff, we knew each other since 1988 and, stuff like that. So she comes over to my place and she's like, I remember you, and this has happened about 3 times. I remember you were into comics, man. Are you still into that? So I walk them up the steps and we walk in here. And they've stuck around. So, hey.
And they're still there.
But I love that look. I wait for that question now. I remember you were kind of into comic books. Are you still doing that?
So, going out and looking for these, look at these back issues in these comics. Do you kind of have a game plan when you go out there, or is it kind of like purely, I'm going to see what I find? I mean, for instance, it's like at the end of February, I'm going back down to London. There's a big comic mart there. If that was you going down there, have you kind of got a list, that you want to go and get, and you will go and find them, or is it just kind of like whatever comes my way.
This is what works for me because, obviously, I've done this a long time, and I don't recommend this. I really don't, man. But what I have found is I've had the list, and I've done this, and I've done that. I got comicbookdb.com with my list of comics and a wish list. And this thing does not, it's not reliable inside of these old iron topped flea market buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
But what I have found out is that if I go in and I'm determined to find this, this is all I'm going to get. I want this, 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 and this. You focus on trying to find those, and you pass up so much good stuff. You do. And I found this out the hard way. I would go through a comic book box, and my friend would be right behind me, going through those boxes after me, and he's pulling out Grant Morrison, Jack Kirby, and all this stuff, because I'm focused on trying to find these books. And that's, the focus just gets tunnel vision. So I don't do that. I get an idea of what I want. I have a pretty good idea of what I need. And I go down there, and it's Christmas. Well, I don't know what I'm going to unwrap or what I'm going to find. I did have one experience in 2001 that creeped me out, and it's the only time it ever happened. There's a place called Johnson's. I was married at the time, and about an hour away was a comic book shop, and they had a flyer out. And about a half hour past that comic book shop, this man who had a comic book shop since 1986 shut down from Maryland, the state, and he was having a garage sale. And I dreamed I would find Watchmen, Dark Knight, and Alan Moore stuff. And I'm not joking. I went down there, and I found it.
The comic gods were looking down on you that day.
That day. Got those for $1. First prints. And then the man saw my selection. I got really eclectic stuff. Doom Patrol 51, Animal Man 51 through 57, the little Kirby here, a little Kirby there, then these Dark Knight books, Alan Moore, Swamp Thing, DC Comics Present. And, I got this eclectic stuff. Everybody else was getting all these bulks. And I come up with my selected stuff, and he stops everything. And he knew something clicked in him. He went in his house and brought out the stuff. He had Kelly Jones, who did Seasons of the Mist with Sandman, stay at his house. And he showed me where he was sitting around his living room, and he was a guest in his house for his comic book shop. And he went through anything he had, Kelly Jones, and drew pictures in it and stuff. We had this awesome talk.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on. But the funniest thing about Kelly Jones is that he and his wife went shopping with him. They lived in California, and they were in Maine now. And they found Blueberry, Frankenberry cereal, and they got all of them and mailed them back to their house in California. They were all excited about finding cereal in Maine,
I mean, I do kind of have that mindset because I've got the Google Doc app on my phone, and that's where I've got all the lists of all the comics books that I want to fill in gaps and stuff. And while I kind of have, like you say, I start off with that tunnel vision, but it's gone within maybe the first half of the long box, and I'm going, look at this, oh no, and I that list gets bigger and bigger.
I actually feel better. You made me feel better.
No, I'm there with you. Because like you say, you're gonna miss out on so much more if you do have that television. I'm only gonna look, say, I want Daredevil issues, whatever. I'm only gonna look into the D part of this box if you're lucky enough to find somewhere that does them alphabetically.
Yes.
Completely agree with the way you should go into that box. Sorry, go on.
Oh no! I was going to just have fun with it. I mean, that's the best thing I can say, man.
Absolutely. You don't know what you're going to find in a long box. Go from the front to the back, because there'll be some gem in there. It might not be a gem to someone else, but it'll be a gem to you.
I have been that guy at Heroes Con where all these people are going through boxes, and I found some throwaway issue with Bizarro from the 1970s and Superman. And in the middle of this great big huge convention of everybody trying to find keys and stuff, I'm like, yes! I'm like holding it up. Everybody's like, what did he find? And it's like, Bizarro!
What?
Yeah, and I have no shame.
And neither should you.
I love my Bizarro,
So here's maybe an odd question to ask. If you could go back as you are now and talk to to that young little Tim with those 3 comics in his hand, is there anything you would say to him about comics or what's to come?
Let me tell you something. I love your questions. I really do. I love these questions, but it's very strange. Okay, if I was in my 30s, I would go back to little Tim and I would give him a heads up. Order that Dark Knight Returns through, mail order. You know what I mean? Grab that freaking, don't throw away those, don't give away those Rob Liefeld New Mutants with that first Deadpool. You will not be attached to, you can sell it years later, right? In my 40s, as I am now, would not change a thing. It's been a great ride. Honestly, I've got to say it's been awesome.
Perfect answer.
Missing out the books. If I had changed anything, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, So, yeah, love it.
And again, it's kind of an age thing with you being the age you are now. Would there be an era of comics that you would like to have been the age you are now to I don't want to say truly appreciate it, but just have a more mature sense of what's going on? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, common sense would tell you Marvel's Silver Age. It really would. The Silver Age of comics and things like that. And yeah, that's great. Love the Ditko Spider-Man. All, nothing bad to say about that stuff. But to be able to go, I'm picturing me getting off work, going to the spinner rack in the 70s and getting the Bronze Age stuff. I would have loved to have been a part of the Bronze Age stuff. Man-Thing, Swamp Thing, House of Mystery, House of Secrets, Marv Wolfman, Len Wein, Steve Gerber, Gary Conway. All these guys who grew up on comics, and having no shame about it, were expanding the line. Jim Starlin on Adam Warlock and Captain Marvel. Gil Kane still sticking in there with some of these books and stuff, man. Yeah, the 70s is exactly where I would have wanted to be, and the indie market was kind of picking up, a little bit. You had like Atlas, Red Circle, Atlas. I'm going to go into it. But then it's like you started having Wendy Penny going around to these comic book conventions as various like Red Sonja. I mean, it's just, I'm so fascinated with the 70s era of comics. It would have had to have been there. That's when people were getting active. I found an old costume cosplay contest from 1973 on YouTube, and it's everything I love. Elric, Flash Gordon, Red. It was like, I think I'm in the wrong era anyway, So. Yeah, but yeah, I didn't stand a chance. So yeah, it would definitely be the 70s. I get pumped up about it if I could have been there. I would have stayed away from the bell bottoms and the porn stashes, but I would have been all right.
Right. Okay. So while we're just getting to like the last 20 minutes or so of the podcast, when I was kind of prepping for this, I just did a simple Google search. I put in something like, what did I put in? Why do I collect comics? That was my Google search.
Why do I want to collect comics?
Yes. No, why do I collect comics?
Okay.
And it was quite interesting to see a lot of the top Google searches were actually things, why not to collect comic books.
Oh,
I know. Now, there was this one particular article, and I'd love to go through these with you. It's from BuzzFeed. It's one of their 13 worst things about collecting comics. And really, there's only 10 here. The last 3 are just nonsense. And I'd just love to go through them with you. Because some of them, okay. Remember, this is an article that came out in January of 2014. So it's 2 years old. All right.
yeah,
but still, some of these are a bit... Okay, the first one, and I have to agree with this one, was why haven't they invented a better storage method than long boxes?
But, okay, I see a loophole. That's about storing your comics, not about buying your comics.
Absolutely.
All right.
Remember, this isn't the height of journalism here. It's a BuzzFeed list.
I will agree with that one. I'm for that one. Yes.
The second one was your comic book shop looks like a dungeon.
Oh, that's such a stereotype.
It is, though, isn't it now?
What do we want? Do we want a fog machine? Do we want strobe light? Okay. I mean, he's a clerk. He's getting cheap rent And are you really there for the decor? Are you there to like find a place to sit and have some of your Starbucks coffee? I'm sorry, I'm not there to play on my phone. I'm sorry.
No.
Work the damn books. Thank you. I'm out of here.
And it goes straight into number 3, which is one, especially in today's market, that is just such a huge stereotype. The owner is a rude, supercilious jerk.
Oh no. I'm gonna go 50-50 on that. And then I'm gonna cut it down. Yeah, then I'm gonna cut it down another 10% because really it depends how many stupid people he's talked to that day.
Okay.
I worked in a comic book shop for about 6 months, and I mean I am a live and let live, love everybody kind of guy, do your own thing, but I have talked to some idiots, so I'll give them a pass. I won't take it personal.
Okay. Number 4, and we kind of touched on this already. It's difficult to explain your collection to your friends.
Well, my friends are missing out then.
Absolutely. And number 5, they added or your family.
Oh, they're stuck with me. So, hey.
We're stuck by blood. They'll never get rid of that. Number 6, forgot to cancel a title long after it has jumped the shark.
That's just irresponsibility of the collector.
I will hold my hand up high. I have done that. I've stuck with a comic book for far too long when I know it's bad, hoping, I don't know, it'll get better.
I've stuck with whole comic book companies.
Who's the bigger mug? Number 7, companies always trying to gouge you with fancy new covers or holograms. Now, the thing with me on this, though, sorry, Tim, the thing with this with me is that it's like, it's not just comic books that do this. And we act like we're so hard done by, there's the variant covers, we've had the hologram covers, we've had the wraparound covers. But, the music industry have been doing this for years with like picture discs, get it on tape, get it on 7-inch single, 12-inch remix. It's not a new marketing ploy in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think these covers, these special covers, jumped the shark when Malibu had one that was an actual hole through the center of your book that led to the last page of someone being shot. It was a bullet hole through your book. And if I remember right, they actually tried to advertise it as like we actually had people shoot these books. I don't know.
Can you imagine you're there in the warehouse with, I don't know, a pistol just shooting through these comics?
I think it's like a man war, the regulators. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Yeah.
Number 8, killing off beloved heroes as a sales driving device rather than using it to further a story.
Well, to give the devil his due. Are you still there? Are we frozen? There we go. I'll give the devil his due. I think it's lazy story writing, and I think we should speak with our money on that one. I really do. I'll agree with that one. Cool. I can write a book and do 100-page of predictions of the future, and I know I'll get 5 right, so I'm not going to give him too much credit.
Number 9, pushing characters down your throat no one cares about. And the funny thing about this one is they had a little picture of Hawkeye and Mockingbird, a cover grab of those two. No comment. Okay, we'll move swiftly along. This is kind of the last real one because the bottom 3, well, we'll get to that. But number 10 was, if you stop collecting for even a second, you will be completely lost as your favorite character is no longer recognizable.
I think this man is starting to sound like a very jaded husband whose wife cheated on him. Oh no, this man has a lot of personal issues that are leaking into his collection. Can I have one thing be faithful to me?
And then the last three, they all had kind of pictures underneath it, and they weren't really statements as such, but kind of number 11 was, despite the constant embarrassment, and then they put a picture of the Undertaker WF Halloween special from Chaos Comics. Number 12 was, there are some books produced each year, and then there was a copy of Prophet. And then 13 was, which let you proudly stand up and state that you care, that you are a huge comic book fan. And then they put a kind of cover swipe of Mind Management by Jeff Lemire. So he kind of not redeemed himself at the end, but cared about comics at the end of it. He didn't care really what people thought. He'll go through all that to still be a comic book collector.
You know, there's been years over the years where I've gone to a bar or two, maybe in my time, maybe. I'm not saying you're not going to commit to that.
Okay.
And there's people who have what I call little man and or Napoleon syndrome, where they have something to prove because they know they're a little man. You know? So they go in looking for a fight. This man has decided to go after comic book collectors who really are a soft-hearted bunch. That's all I'm saying. You know. You know.
Now I'm kind of going to wrap this up, but it's kind of like on a bit of a morbid kind of end, to be honest, because I just wondered, what do you want to happen to your collection once you die?
Well, it's funny you say that. I have kind of keep in touch. I have some friends who deal in antiques, and I found out that there are auction places up in New York and things. Mm-hmm. You will get more money in a city, but I figure when I get old enough, I will probably keep a few books that actually mean something to me, like the Dark Knight Returns that my grandmother gave me, the leather-bound edition, things like that. Rest of it, I might contact one of these places and just let them auction it off if I make it to like 60, 65. You know, I can't carry this stuff around forever, you know.
So you're not gonna make a coffin for yourself out of comic books?
My Watchmen stuff will be in the coffin with me. Then I want or if I don't get a coffin, I want my ashes. I want a Mark Grunwald. I want my ashes to be put in a Superman book. You know, mix it with the ink.
Mix it in with the ink.
Yeah. I want to be in a Superman comic. You know, literally, physically. That's Howlermouse all over. You know.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Tim. Unless there was something you would like to continue talking about for the next 5 or so minutes, I will wrap this up. But
no, actually, I like to take that time to chat with you just a little bit here because, like I said, I have company here, you know.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and I do not want to rush off. I've had a blast. This has been so much fun. And I will have you back again. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. So yeah, I definitely would like to come back. Yeah. So
brilliant. Thank you very much, Tim, for joining me on the Pure Comic Podcast. Thank you for everyone who's been watching. If you've been doing comments or anything like that, I'll go and look at them later because I still haven't sorted that out. But thank you very much from me and Tim. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.